away from there. They came across as if they were an item. They were in a relationship, and so that letter was supposed to be proof of employment, proof of earnings, and it was from a publishing company. Yeah, so Sean was vouching for everything. So basically, it happened.
Hey folks, thanks for tuning in. A little update on the Sean Attwood Daddygate story for you. You may well have been tuned in to the What is Truth podcast, which aired on Saturday the 30th of January. It's always good hearing the callers phone in because they provide a voice that reminds me that I'm not going mad and that I'm not questioning this situation alone. But I know from looking at the views on the What is Truth podcast, there are thousands of people who are questioning this situation. So that's very good. There's a lot that came up in that 6-hour live stream. There's a lot of points to be covered about so many different things, but I'm just going to cover one main point today which I think requires the most scrutiny. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you like this content, and if you could like the video as well, that would be fantastic, thank you. So most of us know the Daddygate situation like the back of our hand just now, where Sean Attwood, the self-styled sex abuse activist, had a guest on his channel. Her name was Cali Diamond. I'm not going to go over the Daddygate scandal here in this video. If you want a roundup of it, please check out some of my previous videos. But basically, Sean Attwood admitted to taking advantage of a trafficked vulnerable woman in what many consider to be quite a depraved video. Before this was actually exposed though, Mr. Attwood was pushing a Gofundme on his channel for Cali Diamond. Now this Gofundme was billed as a new start, new home, new life. And it was pushed because she needed to escape the traffickers, we were told, and she wanted stability. She wanted a safe place that she could call at home. It says new home. She wanted somewhere that she could be reunited with her son. The GoFundMe did quite well, as you would expect. Many of Mr. Attwood's audience were actually sympathetic to Cali's situation. They donated £5,330 into the GoFundMe before it stalled, and it was shut down by Mr. Attwood due to what was becoming quite intense scrutiny due to the Daddygate situation being exposed. So they cashed out at over £5,300 anyway, and some of this money was used to get Cali into a flat, and we were told that she was reunited with her son as well, and this was all because of the GoFundMe. So happy days.
Cali's son, after years,
yeah, we're in my house.
The house now.
We're in my house. My son's in the next room. This is my lovely house. Thank you, everyone, for helping me get away from everywhere.
Except for Anne.
Yeah.
We're going to get you away from Anne now.
Fast forward to now, and the wife of the landlord of that flat has come forward, a lady called Chrissy. She's been interviewed on the What is Truth podcast. I'm going to put a link down below to her segment on the podcast. But from what she says, at some point after Cali moved into the flat, the rent payments stopped with no explanation. Cali was in there for almost 6 months and only 2 months rent got paid altogether, and the landlord had to take legal action to remove Cali, and just in January actually managed to get Cali out of the property. As it currently stands now, we're told that the landlord is owed £5,000 in unpaid rent, and there have allegedly been over 20 police reports made by neighbours and other people in relation to the property, reporting things such as obvious prostitution, drug dealing and drug use, as well as lots of other antisocial behaviour, all relating to this flat which we were told the GoFundMe got for Cali. I'm not going to focus on what took place at the flat, but obviously it's a very upsetting situation for the landlord and their family, but it's not what I want to focus on in this video, although I do want to point out that Chrissy said Mr. Attwood changed the locks at the property without the landlord's knowledge, and this was done amidst all the reports of the alleged drug use and prostitution, etc. So if it's true that Mr. Attwood came along and changed the locks, that doesn't really seem to be helping Cali if the goal was to get her settled and stable in a new home, a place where she could be reunited with her son, a new life, a new start. What stood out to me most though is how Cali and Mr. Attwood presented themselves to Chrissy and the landlord. According to Chrissy, Mr. Attwood was smartly dressed and came across very well. She thought that he was a reformed character and an activist, and he had a little bit of clout behind him because she'd seen him on Banged Up Abroad, and he even gave her a signed book proving that he's an author. But he stated that he was Cali's partner. It does get more interesting, but let's focus on that just now. So if Mr. Attwood and Cali were partners, why was this not advised to the public when the GoFundMe was being advertised? There was no mention whatsoever that it was a GoFundMe to get Mr. Attwood's girlfriend a place to stay. That might have changed people's minds a little bit. However, if they were not partners, then why was the landlord told they were when they were attempting to get a lease for this flat? Relationship status is an important factor in a landlord's decision-making process. It's also an official designation, whether married, cohabiting or not. If you have a partner, that's actually a factor in whether you can access certain financial products, for example, or indeed leases. It's something that lenders and landlords ask for a reason, because it's something that they consider. So why would this landlord be getting told something that was untrue that may affect her decision-making process when it comes to Cali getting a lease at the property? But the most interesting thing to me is the fact that this letter was also given to the landlord by Mr. Attwood to support the fact that Cali was about to get a job, proving that she would have enough money to afford the property. It's not a cheap flat at £1,250 a month, so financial means need to be proven in order for a tenant to be given a lease so that they don't end up leaving the place with massive rent arrears, as has happened in this case. The letter that Sean Attwood gave them was from a limited company, a consultancy firm, which stated that Cali would be employed with that firm from the 3rd of August and that she'd be getting £30,000 a year. And Mr. Attwood advised the landlord that he had personally helped Cali get that job. Now that's surprising, as we've all seen Cali's videos. She doesn't have a typical job, and she's never made any mention of being employed or getting a job with a consultancy firm at all. That, and obviously the prostitution reports and the all-night party reports, if they are true, it doesn't seem likely that that job actually happened. If Cali was getting a job for £30,000 a year, you'd think this would be mentioned to the donators as well when advertising that GoFundMe. But as I say, it doesn't seem like the job actually happened. And that isn't surprising at all, because when you check out this limited company on Companies House, which is the official government tool for checking limited companies, all limited companies have to appear on Companies House. When you check there, the company does not exist. There's only one, and there only ever has been one limited company by this name, and that limited company was dissolved in September 2014. I had to check this repeatedly because I couldn't really believe that a letter like this, clearly proving Cali's finances so that she could enter into a legal contract allowing her to gain access to someone's property as a tenant, the GoFundMe property no less, I just couldn't believe that the company is coming up as dissolved, because it's all there in black and white on this letter. How could this letter be a mistake? You can also see that it's signed off by a director of the company, and that name does not appear anywhere on Companies House in the list of directors of that company. So this is extremely strange, and I think the landlord should be looking into it, as it's very difficult to explain away. How did all this information get onto the letter with a dissolved company name at the top of it, signed off by someone who wasn't a director of the company? It's got the date that she starts, the amount she's getting paid, all very strange. Please let me know what you think in the comments about this. I think this is the most important thing to focus on here, because this really does need to be explained. Cali may not have kept up with the rent, but she wouldn't have had access to this expensive property in the first place if it wasn't for the involvement of Mr. Attwood, who, we were told, came along and changed the locks after the rent stopped getting paid as well. It's now a case of trying to work out who's responsible for paying the landlord what they are owed, and possibly their legal fees. The total runs to about £6,500. Somebody has to pay it. The landlord's out of pocket. Will it be Cali that's responsible, because unsurprisingly it's only her name which appears on any of the associated paperwork? Or will it be Mr. Attwood who's responsible if what Chrissy says is correct and he did indeed provide evidence of Cali's supposed employment from a company which doesn't exist, and also if he did falsely state that he was Cali's partner? There is also the question of the shortfall in the Gofundme. Only £2,500 has actually been accounted for, which leaves £2,800 which is just gone. Mr. Attwood said that it's all been cleared by Gofundme and that it went on hotels and clothes apparently, but I don't really think that this has been proven. Gofundme may be happy, but no receipts have been shown to the public, who after all were the donators, to explain where the £2,800 went or why hotels were being paid for when Cali was living with Mr. Attwood. The donators were not paying for trips away, they were paying for Cali's new start, new life and new home, and for her to be reunited with her son. He also mentioned that money was spent on food. I find it hard to accept that money for food for Cali was being taken out of the Gofundme cash when she was living with Mr. Attwood. That just sounds miserly beyond belief at best. Also, why was money being spent on clothes for Cali? She has numerous outfits. At most £200 would have covered basic clothes, and it's extremely arguable as to whether a wardrobe update was actually part of the GoFundMe. We're talking about £2,800 here that hasn't really been accounted for. No receipts have been shown. But most importantly is how Cali got access to the property in the first place, due to Mr. Attwood coming along, suited and booted, giving a signed copy of his book, saying that he's Cali's partner, providing a letter for a job which he's told the landlords that he helped her get, and that letter being covered in information which does not appear to be true. So there's certainly some explaining to be done. Chrissy has confirmed that she'll be coming back on the What Is Truth podcast soon with more information, and it'll be very interesting to see what Mr. Attwood has got to say in response to Chrissy's comments. So definitely tune into the What Is Truth podcast when Chrissy comes back on. I think that might be happening at the weekend. You can go over there and subscribe. As I say, I've put a link in the description anyway. I will be bringing you more information about this as well, so please don't forget to show your support by liking this video and also smashing the subscribe button, because it really does help me out. Many thanks to Chrissy for coming forward, and everyone else who's made this video possible, specifically relating to this situation. Craig the Bloodhound, Wheezy, Missy and Jessica have been invaluable, and it just wouldn't have been possible without their input. So I appreciate all of you and everyone else who fires ideas over. You're all much appreciated, and everyone listening as well. So I'll leave it there, folks. Thanks again for tuning in today, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.
And I didn't know anything about this, and that's when I looked on the internet and saw all this Cali Diamond. I'm like, that is the girl that's in the bloody flat.